For me, one of the things I've been trying to push our team in the Higher Education Committee and our staff and my colleagues is, and presidents across the state, is we've got to have more transparency, which will lead to accountability and efficiency, and ultimately we have to redefine not only government but higher education in a way that we get more productivity out of the limited resources we have. And ultimately, when you think about that, the highest costs in the business model of higher education are in human capital or in payroll. And so we have to either reduce that or get more value out of administration, staff, and faculty. And that's just a hard fact of life. You could say, well, why do we have to do that? It's because it's our view that the taxpayers, perhaps driven by their view of Washington and excess, are demanding that we get by with less and not raise revenue in the form of taxes. And that's a debatable subject, but that's the position of the leadership and the majority party. And in our House, it's now a 2/3 majority, more than 2/3 majority. And our Speaker has said we're going to do this without raising taxes. And so that's the mission that we're on in our chamber. Churchill had it right. I mean, we got to figure out, we've got to be, if you're looking for any positives in all this, we're going to have to, the pressure of fewer and fewer resources is going to have to use technology more. We're going to have to make our human capital more valuable. We're going to have to find ways to make higher education more productive, more efficient with less resources. And so, but for this pressure, I don't think we'd come up with some of the great ideas we're going to come up with. We would just sort of go along and keep doing it the way we've been doing it. So that's, for me, that's the positive way to look at this crisis. And you know, we're going to make it through. I tell people that Oxford and Cambridge survived World War II. London survived the Blitz. And you know, this could be worse. It looks really bad to a lot of our college presidents, but it could be worse, and we're gonna make it through it. Texans always do. If you're looking at priorities for higher education, for me, we've got to improve outcomes, whether that's in our financial aid, whether that's in making sure we get better outcomes in higher ed in our institutions. We need you all to all get your degrees to complete, and that's what the whole national reform movement in higher education is about. We've got to get more credentials and make sure our adult population, 25 and older, has either an AA degree, a bachelor's degree, or a certificated program that we can say we have a skilled workforce and we want capital to flow into our country and into our state. And if we don't have that, I think it's going to move away from us. So this is really important stuff. We've got to have students be more efficient. We've got to move people along, not use up financial aid in too many victory laps. We've got to increase efficiency. We've got to make sure we do things off campus. We've got to have online opportunities, internships, use our buildings and capacity better. We've got to have more value out of the faculty, and we've got to, and staff and administration, and we've got to, the legislature needs to do a better job of reducing mandates and burdens and reports that you all have to spend money on preparing for us, and if we don't need them, we ought to get rid of them. So again, here, this slide just shows you right now how many we give financial aid out, and we lose lots and lots of dollars because we give financial aid out and people either don't complete an associate's degree or they don't complete a bachelor's degree. And this is not just after 4 years, this is after 6 years. And so the point is to adjust the Texas grant program, which I think will have money ultimately put in it, and then to make it not only a need-based. Right now, if you have a need and you press the button and you file your application first, you get the money. So it's need plus whoever files first or whoever mails in their application first, as opposed to whoever has need and has shown college readiness. And so what we'll see is legislation in our chamber and in the Senate move toward adjusting that to need plus college readiness or preparation, some evidence of preparation, and there'll be a debate about what makes up readiness or preparation. And you can see here, this is a notion that students be more efficient, that after you've at least passed 30 hours that you file a degree plan. And I know that's not a problem for you all. For the Horns, you all get that. But I know we have this issue at a lot of our institutions where people are still sort of wandering and taking courses and don't really have a plan, and therefore they end up taking many more hours than they need to graduate because they're not focused on what they want to get a major in or what they want to get a degree in. We also need to make sure it's easier to transfer. And whether you take a course here, or whether you take a course at another institution, or whether you take a basic course at a community college, you can transfer and move around because we have a pretty mobile population. Require more off-campus instruction. This was the detail of what we talked about earlier, and you can see these notions here. You can also see this notion of getting more out of being more productive. Really important in higher ed, and you know, it's a difficult issue because you know, values can be measured differently. Someone does great research, someone's a master teacher, someone publishes and writes and brings attention and value. So you can't just woodenly look at it and say, well, how many classes are you teaching? But on the other hand, I think we're going to have to ask more during this time period, especially of all of our human capital at our universities. Reducing this is something that the legislature's got to do. We've got to reduce unnecessary burdens and free up human capital to educate and do research and not be doing unnecessary administrative. A vision for higher ed. Again, we've got to have not only a strong community college system. Over half of our 1.5 million students are in the community college system. So, you know, a lot of people think of higher ed and they think of UT and they think of A&M, of other institutions. The reality is, and I met with a bunch of community college presidents this morning at lunch, and we had a rally with their students yesterday on the south steps of the Capitol, notwithstanding the warm temperature. And so community colleges have I told them you're the muscle of higher ed in the sense that the majority of people in higher education are in our community colleges. So we got to make sure we have a balanced system. We also have to have more national research institutions, and we got to have master teaching. We get a lot of taxpayers say, hey, just focus on really quality teaching. What's all this research stuff? And we say, well, you got to have both. The economic development issues are important, and ultimately a lot of good education takes place with good teaching. So they're not mutually exclusive. We've got to make sure things are productive and that they're affordable. We've got to be more technologically driven, in my view. Your generation demands more interactive, more nimble content, and we've got to deliver that to be relevant to you all. And we've got to make sure that your classroom time is rich, and that if we can deliver curriculum to in ways on a screen that you would rather have in your apartment or dorm, and it works, then and you can test and show competency, then we ought to be able to offer that as an option. Ultimately, our strategy of having more enrollments, more graduations, more excellent institutions, and more research. We're doing very well in this area. We're doing pretty good and better than expected in this area, and we need work on having more excellent institutions like UT, and we need to have more research capacity. We're losing research dollars to other states like California and New York. And finally, we have to have, and I think whether it's A&M or the University of Texas, you all probably have an opinion on that. I think we need to have soon one university in the top 10. A state like Texas ought to have at least one of our universities considered in the top 10. Right now, your university is ranked, I think, 13th among public universities, a little further back among all universities, and we need to have a top 10 medical school. Right now, our state, being the second largest state, second largest economy in the U.S., doesn't have either a top 10 undergraduate university or a top 10 medical school, and I think that's unacceptable. In 15 years, we need to have more Tier 1s, and we need to have credentialed population. We need 55% of our adult population to be credentialed, and we've got our work cut out for us to get to that number. So these are some of the goals, the vision that we have, that I have for higher education. And here's a chart, then we'll end with this and maybe one more. But this is if you don't take anything else away from the discussion today, focus on this bar chart here. These are all democracies their economies are doing, some are doing very well, some not so well. But look at look at this. Their youngest population, which is the blue part of the bar chart, the leading edge, all taller than the others. So their youngest population tranche is all more educated than their middle and older age populations. And now look at the United States. And now look at Texas. That's unacceptable. That ought to scare us, because we now have a younger generation that's less educated than our middle and senior generations. And that is not a statistic that bodes well for our future. And that's why I get pretty fired up about getting it right on education. That's why I will work hard and advocate for not cutting education relative to other areas, because it's so important that we, in a knowledge-based economy, have an educated workforce. So that's one. Finally, this is a favorite cartoon of some of us. The LA Times reporter this morning probably didn't think so much of this. This was on The Economist 2 summers ago, right after we finished the session. And the article was saying that that Texas is growing, that these crazy Texans are headed out to the beach with their biceps looking good. And here was the California surfer dude whose surfboard is crumbling and biceps are shrinking, and he's leaving the water. And the point is that Texas is rising. You saw the numbers in congressional seats. California flat for the first time since we've been taking the census, did not grow. And so maybe there's things about our model that we've talked about, of limited government, that are attracting people to our state, that are attracting businesses here. On the other hand, the article pointed out that one of our shortcomings was a serious investment in higher education. They also pointed out that that was changing based on last session, with our Tier 1 initiative, with our increased financial aid funding, with our dramatically increased funding in higher education. Now all that's on the table, and we've got to manage through that, maintain this positive perception about Texas and higher ed at a time when we've got some serious budget challenges facing us. And so to me, that's the tension, the creative tension, hopefully, that we face just a few blocks from here to the south. And the stakes are high. I mean, we've got to have a model that works, that keeps you here, that keeps you all interested in Texas. We've got to keep a low-tax, limited government state, because that's been our tradition, our heritage, and that's what the current taxpayers are demanding. On the other hand, they want quality infrastructure. We've got to have quality universities. We've got to have a top 10 university. We've got to have transportation systems. We've got to have energy systems where we don't worry about bleeder valves that are causing rolling blackouts when we have 10-degree temperature. And we've got to make sure that we've got not only a power grid, but a water system that allows us to grow for the next 60 years. So for me, if I was in your shoes, the great challenges that Texas faces are the exciting ones. Can we maintain this infrastructure of opportunity? Can we maintain a high-quality education, have an educated workforce? And then can you all help us figure out how we make sure we have the great transportations, energy, power, water, social safety net systems, and do all that while keeping our taxes low, our government limited, which keeps attracting more growth. Sound simple? Anyway, the lecture is yours, and we'll open it up to Q&A.